Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something, well, kind of controversial.
Yeah.
Wokeness.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the twist. We're not just throwing opinions around.
No.
We've got some serious data to unpack from a brand new study out of Finland.
And it's a big one. Over 5,000 Finnish adults.
Yeah, published in the Scandinavian Journal of Psychology, no less.
The real deal.
So get this. They actually found a way to measure wokeness.
I know, right? It's fascinating stuff.
So today we're diving deep into this research to figure out how these woke attitudes relate to gender and even mental well-being.
Buckle up. It's going to be a thought-provoking ride.
Definitely.
Data on the screen, numbers come alive. Male, female flows where the patterns thrive. Visual charts, public colors unify. Gender decoded, bringing truth to light. Small drum fill. We break it down, real talk. Trends unveiling, facts from every block. Here's your insight, watch the data glide. Gender decoded, let the beats collide. We break it down, real talk. Trends unveiling, facts from every block. Here's your insight, watch the data glide. Gender decoded, let the beats collide.
All right, so have you ever wondered what it actually means to be woke?
Yeah.
It's one of those words you see everywhere these days.
It really is.
But what does it actually mean beyond just being a buzzword?
Right. It feels like one of those terms that, everyone uses, but they might have slightly different definitions kind of floating around in their head.
Exactly, and that's where this Finnish study that we're going to be diving into today gets super interesting.
Okay.
Because they actually tried to measure wokeness and see how it connects to mental well-being.
Interesting.
So they created a whole wokeness scale.
Oh, wow.
It's officially called the Critical Social Justice Attitude Scale, or CSJAS.
Okay.
So wait, a wokeness scale?
Yeah.
How does that even work? I'm intrigued.
Well, they conducted 2 studies in Finland.
Okay.
A pilot study with over 800 people,
Okay.
and then a nationwide study with over 5,000 people.
Wow.
And get this, Finland is already considered pretty progressive, right?
Yeah, that's what I've always heard, yeah.
So what did they find? Were Finns all over this wokeness thing?
That's a good question.
Well, not quite.
Okay.
And that's what makes this research so fascinating.
Okay.
Even in a country like Finland, there's a lot more nuance to how people view these ideas than you might expect.
Gotcha. So, okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about this scale.
Okay.
Did they just ask people, hey, how woke are you?
Oh, definitely not.
Okay.
They use these very specific statements to gauge people's beliefs.
Okay.
Some examples were if white people have, on average, a higher level of income than black people, it is because of racism.
Wow.
Or university reading lists should include fewer white or European authors.
Those are pretty direct statements.
Yeah.
It feels like it's getting to the heart of what people might consider woke.
Right.
It's not just about awareness, but actual beliefs about these systemic issues.
Yes.
And what needs to change.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
And to ensure people weren't just agreeing with everything, they included reverse scored items, too.
Yeah.
Things like, we don't need to talk more about the color of people's skin.
Okay.
Now, that seems to go against the idea of wokeness.
Right.
But on the scale, it helps measure the same concept from another angle.
So it's a checks and balances system within the scale itself.
Exactly.
Pretty clever.
Yeah.
What was the biggest shocker for you when they crunched all this data?
Well, one of the most significant findings for me was this huge gender gap.
Okay.
Women were far more likely to agree with those woke statements than men.
Okay, that's interesting, but how big are we talking?
Well, the study states that 3 out of 5 women view these ideas positively.
Okay.
Versus only 1 out of 7 men.
Wow.
That's almost a 3-to-1 ratio.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, if you look at the wokeness by sex chart in the study, The difference is pretty dramatic.
Wow, even in Finland?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I have to admit I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
What are some, like, potential explanations for this?
Well, the study offers a few possibilities.
Oh.
One is that women might be more tuned into other people's feelings and experiences.
Yeah.
Maybe due to just like societal expectations or how they were raised.
That makes sense if you're encouraged to be more empathetic from a young age.
Right, yeah.
You might be more likely to consider these systemic issues
Exactly.
and how they affect different groups.
Yeah. Another idea is that women, particularly in Finland,
Okay.
might be more aware of inequalities based on gender. Having that lived experience could lead to a broader sensitivity towards social justice issues in general.
It's like they're connecting the dots between their own experiences
Right?
and the struggles of other marginalized groups.
Exactly.
They're seeing, like, the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Right.
And interestingly, the research also found that women working in fields like education and social sciences were even more likely to embrace these woke viewpoints.
Oh, okay, so that raises a question for me.
Okay.
Do you think certain professions attract people who are already inclined towards social justice? Or does the work itself, like, influence their views over time?
It's probably a mix of both, wouldn't you say?
Probably.
I mean, these fields often directly deal with like power dynamics and social inequality.
Right, right. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got this, like, striking gender gap
Mhm.
in how people view wokeness. But there's another finding that I think people might find even more unexpected
Okay.
and possibly a bit controversial.
Interesting.
You're talking about the connection to mental health, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where things get really fascinating.
I'm ready.
Let's unpack that in part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good. So the mental health connection is definitely one of the most thought-provoking parts of this whole study.
Yeah.
Essentially, they found a correlation
Okay.
between those higher wokeness scores
Yeah.
and increased reports of like anxiety and depression.
Hold on, though. Correlation doesn't equal causation, right?
Right, exactly.
Like, we need to be super careful about jumping to conclusions here.
Absolutely. It's important to emphasize that. But the correlation is there, and it's definitely worth like exploring.
Okay.
Take a look at the wokeness and anxiety and wokeness and depression charts.
Okay.
Both show this upward trend.
So the more strongly people align with those woke statements,
Right.
the higher their reported levels of anxiety and depression tended to be.
Yeah, that's what the data suggests.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, the million-dollar question is, why might this be the case?
Right.
The research explores a few possibilities.
Okay. Lay it on me. What are some potential explanations they offer?
One thought is that constantly being aware of injustice and microaggressions
Yeah.
could lead to a kind of like hypervigilance,
Okay.
which can be, incredibly draining.
Right.
Imagine being always on alert,
Yeah.
looking for those signs of oppression. Like that takes a toll.
Yeah. It's like carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, you know? You're constantly scanning your environment, filtering everything through this lens of social justice. I
Yeah.
can see how that could be exhausting.
Exactly. And then there's the whole impact of online activism and cancel culture.
Right.
Social media can be a breeding ground for negativity, especially around these highly charged issues.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you're coming from a good place, engaging in those spaces can be emotionally taxing.
Oh, it's so easy to get caught up in the outrage cycle.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like there's a new battle to fight every single day.
Right.
I imagine that feeling of always needing to be on guard could really contribute to anxiety.
Definitely. Another factor they point to is personality
Okay.
and those underlying traits people might have.
Right.
So, those who are naturally high in empathy or conscientiousness,
Okay.
for example, might be drawn to social justice causes.
Yeah.
And might be more prone to things like anxiety or overthinking.
So it's not necessarily wokeness itself.
Right.
That's the problem, but maybe certain personality types that gravitate towards both. Wokeness and might be more susceptible to these mental health challenges.
Precisely. It's this complex interplay of factors.
Yeah, right.
And we also can't forget the potential emotional burden of advocating for change,
Yeah.
witnessing injustice, and feeling that drive to fight for a better world.
Right.
Especially if you feel like progress is slow or non-existent, can be incredibly tough.
Yeah, it's like you're constantly pushing against this massive, immovable system.
Yeah.
And that can feel incredibly overwhelming. And then there's the potential social conflict that comes with advocating for these viewpoints.
For sure.
Challenging the status quo isn't always easy.
No.
Especially if it means going against the grain within your own social circle.
Definitely. And it all ties back to the context of this study in Finland.
Right.
A country with a reputation for being pretty progressive.
Exactly. You'd think woke ideas would be pretty mainstream there.
You would.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting is that even in Finland, a good chunk of people, especially men, don't strongly endorse all the viewpoints measured by this wokeness scale.
That's pretty surprising.
Yeah, it challenges some of the assumptions we might have.
It definitely does. And they found some other, real interesting trends.
Oh, yeah?
For example, there was this clear divide between folks working in STEM fields versus those in the humanities and social sciences.
Oh, interesting.
So it's not just about education level then.
Right.
Two people could have PhDs.
Yeah.
But their views on wokeness might be totally different.
Exactly.
Depending on their area of study.
It seems like the kind of work you do.
Right.
The ideas you're exposed to daily can shape your perspective in a significant way. So how can we, apply this research to our own lives?
Yeah.
What are some, tangible steps that listeners can take to engage with these issues in a way that's both meaningful and mindful of their well-being?
That's a great question. I think one key takeaway is to be aware of our own tendencies towards black and white thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get caught up in labeling people or ideas as simply good or bad.
Right.
But this research encourages us to embrace a more nuanced perspective.
Instead of immediately shutting down viewpoints that challenge our own, maybe we can approach those conversations with curiosity.
Exactly.
And a willingness to understand where the other person is coming from.
Precisely. It's also crucial to be mindful of our own mental health boundaries.
Right.
It's admirable to want to fight for social justice.
Yeah.
But it's also important to recognize that we can't pour from an empty cup. Right. If we're constantly engaging in emotionally charged battles online, attending protests, having these difficult conversations.
Yeah. That's a lot.
It can really take a toll.
It can.
Self-care isn't selfish. It's essential for sustainability in any kind of activism or advocacy work.
Absolutely. Finding healthy ways to de-stress.
Yeah.
Connect with supportive communities, and prioritize our own well-being allows us to show up more effectively for the causes we care about.
I love that. So to wrap things up, it seems like this Finnish study offers this powerful reminder that wokeness is a complex and evolving concept.
It is.
With a range of interpretations and implications. Yeah. It's not a simple box to check or a label to wear, but rather a spectrum of beliefs and values that intersect with individual experiences, cultural influences, and even our chosen professions.
And perhaps the most important takeaway is the need for thoughtful engagement with these issues.
Yeah.
Recognizing the diversity of thought that exists, prioritizing open dialogue over ideological purity, and always being mindful of our own mental and emotional well-being.
This has been a truly insightful deep dive.
It has.
We've explored wokeness from its definition to its connection to gender and mental well-being. We hope this episode has given you a fresh perspective and some food for thought.
Yeah.
As you navigate these complex issues in your own life.
And remember, embracing nuance, engaging in respectful dialogue, and prioritizing your well-being are all crucial steps in creating a more just and equitable world for everyone.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into wokeness, gender, and mental well-being. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.